Okay. Good morning. I will call to order the Arapahoe County Board of County Commissioners meeting today, May 23rd, 2017. And to my left is Ron Carl, County Attorney, and to my right is Jolene Sanchez, Assistant Clerk to the Board. Ms. Sanchez, would you call the roll of the Board, please?
Commissioner Jackson? Here. Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Conti is absent and excused. Commissioner Baker?
Here.
And Commissioner Sharp?
Here. And Commissioner Holland, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wanted to just take a minute for us to have a moment of silence to show our respect and deep sense of sadness for the families and friends of those who were killed in the really despicable and cowardly act of terrorism in Manchester, England yesterday. Many of those were young girls, ages 8 to 18, and it's a very, very sad day. So let's just take a couple of minutes. Thank you. Mr. Carl, are there any modifications to the agenda this morning?
There are no modifications.
A motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Baker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. This is the time for citizen comment period on anything that is not on the agenda today. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Maureen Welch, and I also brought along my son, James Welch, in 2D. He's much quieter and better behaved in that form. I live at 4896 South Clarkson Street in Cherry Hills Village in Commissioner Conti's district, and I'm here to speak today about the mill levy, which is a property tax in Arapahoe County for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, like my son, James, who's 10. He has Down syndrome, and he wants to become a firefighter. So the highlight of his summer is coming up with a fire muster down at Littleton Community College that you do the weekend of Father's Day. So we'll be down there. I want to commend the commissioners for the Clifton Larson Allen contract that you all did in conjunction with Douglas County in regards to looking at the use of the funds for this particular mill levy. I do want to point out that Clifton Larson Allen in their report made it very clear that they only pulled 110 receipts. That was their entire investigation, and it cost $10,500. And I know from doing my taxes that doesn't get you a whole lot from a CPA firm. But they did make it very clear in their report on page number 4 that they were not engaged and did not conduct an examination, the objective of which would be an expression of opinion on developmental pathways compliance with the intergovernmental agreement with the county as it relates to mill levy spending. We do not express such an opinion. Had we performed additional procedures, other matters may have come to our attention that would have been reported to you. So it's a very limited scope, a small little window into 110 invoices. They also on page 2 pointed out that the detail provided was not specific to expenses paid by the county mill levy funding, as the account coding for expenses in the general ledger detail was not specific to funding source. So in other words, the 110 receipts that they pulled, they were unable to figure out the source, whether it was coming from federal, state, or local taxes. And I have a real concern with that. This is exactly what happened in Denver with the Rocky Mountain Human Services, is they threw all the money into one pot, and they did not have accounting procedures in place. The Denver City Council is now putting into place much more parameters in their contract to make sure there's more accountability for the sources of money and expenditures, and I'd really encourage this body to do the same. We need to make sure that the taxpayer monies are actually going to what they're told, and no matter how many pretty graphs you put into a report, if you can't source the money, to me as a taxpayer, you can't say where it's coming from. That's a big concern. I also want to remind people that in the future, with conflict-free case management, which just should be signed by the governor any day, there will be more than one case management agency. So I really feel that the commission should look at setting up an independent committee that recommends the use of this money, much as Douglas County has such a body for the 5% of their mill levy that they give out in grants, which is not to their CCB, so they give it out to other organizations. So thank you so very much for your time today, and I just want to make sure that we're doing right by voters and how they wanted this money to be spent. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Wells.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Janet Cook at 6393 South Vanderhoof Street in Bennett, and I live in Jeff's district. So I'm going to start out. This is about the intellectual development disability, the IDD mill levy process. So when an employee goes into your room or into your office, the first thing they're going to come in is have an issue, and I usually refer to that as a monkey on your shoulder. And so my monkey is how this IDD mill levy is presently being processed, where we give money to a state contractor. And so we're losing matching funds by this present system, as you're aware. There's also an extra layer in this system to where that it's almost like you're paying fees of managing a trust or a Vanguard account. And that money could be used in other sources as far as direct services. And importantly, Arapahoe County does an outstanding job in managing the limited resources we have, and they need to take control of it. And as you are all aware, because of legislation in state and federal, that's going to mandate us to take a different process. So instead of me transferring this monkey to your shoulders so it'll be a little light in the load, I'm going to keep this monkey. And I choose to work it. I want to work this issue. I want to provide input on how I see as a taxpayer of transitioning into a new process. And I'd like to partner as a resource in this very important issue that's very near and dear to me. I'm blessed that I don't have somebody that I have to care for 24/7 other than my in-laws. But I can only imagine I got a taste of that when I took care of my in-laws before they passed away at my house doing 24/7 hospice care. This is really important, and this money needs to be put into a place that where people have programs, they have options, and they're not limited. And it's interesting, when I came in, I saw Arapahoe County, Colorado first. I would hope that you would follow that statement and start the process and looking. I know there's many questions of how do we do this, but I think that when you have one state contractor having control of that, there's no competition. It's like, and that to me is wrong. There's many options. So in closing, I would hope that, again, living up to Colorado First, that you go and start asking those questions and use me as a resource. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Any others that would like to speak during public comment? Okay, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Holen. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We have two public hearings today, and the first one is adoption of first quarter supplemental appropriation resolutions, and our attorney is John Christopherson, Deputy County Attorney, and presenter Jessica Savko, Budget Analyst. And would you please set the foundation, Mr. Christopherson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to state statute, once the county has adopted its annual budget, the board may transfer appropriate monies between funds or between spending agencies within a fund, or if unanticipated revenues are received, the board may elect a supplemental budget appropriation only after notice of the transfer and/or supplemental appropriation has been published. The record should reflect that notice of the 17 amendments to the 2017 budget was published in the May 18, 2017 issue of the Village Year newspaper. Therefore, the board has jurisdiction to consider these 17 amendments to the 2017 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Christopherson. Oh, cute.
We'll not do that piece. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Savko.
So before you this morning are 17 resolutions to amend the 2017 budget. These supplements were reviewed at the first quarter budget review study session on May 9th. And at that time, it was recommended that they be brought forward for today's public hearing. And I'll highlight a few of those for you. There's a request to appropriate $350,000 in the general fund for the clerk and recorder's office. That's to preserve and digitize at-risk historical documents. There's a request to recognize and appropriate $75,000 for the sheriff's office and the general fund, and that's for a transfer from the self-insurance liability fund to purchase emergency radios. There's a request to recognize $117,000 for the sheriff's office and the general fund for payment from Human Services for 2 civilian senior clerks to perform NCIC background checks. There's a request to recognize nearly $101,000 in the Central Services Fund in the Admin Services Department, and that is to recognize a transfer from the Self-Insurance Liability Fund for the proceeds from 6 totaled vehicles for the Sheriff's Office. And then a request to appropriate nearly $144,000 to replace 4 of those totaled vehicles in the Central Services Fund. There's a request to recognize and appropriate nearly $564,000 in the grant fund for the Sheriff's Office, and that's for grants to be rolled forward that were not finished in prior years, as well as $1.9 million in the Homeland Security Fund, also for Sheriff's Office grants that were not completed in prior years. And then a request to recognize and appropriate $1.8 million in the Infrastructure Fund for various projects for public works. The net impact for the general fund is nearly $246,000, and the net impact to all funds is approximately $419,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Savko. Questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. I'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on the issue of adoption of the first quarter supplemental appropriation resolutions? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and if there are no further questions, I'll ask for a motion.
Move that we approve the first quarter supplemental appropriation.
Motion made by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our second public hearing this morning is case P16-028, Saddle Rock Highlands number 7 final plat. And our presenter is Bill Skinner, Senior Planner, Public Works and Development. Our attorney on this matter is Mr. Robert Hill, Senior Assistant County Attorney. Mr. Hill, would you set the foundation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This final plat has been noticed by publication and mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with the Land Development Code. The board has jurisdiction to proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Skinner?
Bill Skinner for the Planning Division. Our plat presentations tend to be fairly brief because plats are dictated by statute. We find this plat located on the northeast corner of Malta and Quincy Avenue to meet those state requirements that have been adopted by the county. So we find the plat to be complete and compliant. Just a little information about it. The applicant is dividing a 16.2 acre lot 16.2 acre property into 96 lots intended for subdivision, or I am off my game today, folks, for single-family detached homes and the supporting tracks and infrastructure. Before a subdivision like this comes through, staff does compare it to surrounding lot sizes. We consider the adjacent uses, largely through the concurrent FDP application, But we felt that this is appropriate. We feel that the plat is well done and ready to come to you for approval. Staff recommendation is for approval, and we can speak to the applicant if you wish.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Skinner? Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, as always, you provided us with fascinating reading. And I got really kind of intrigued by, forgive me, I never thought I'd ever say this, by the drainage and the report about the water and the different kinds of soils.
Sure.
Could you kind of just, I don't think you need to summarize that for us, but assure us that the applicant in these plans and documents has taken care of that so that the homeowners are not going to see their soil settling and all kinds of stuff ensuing from that.
Understood. I don't believe I have a copy of an updated Colorado Geological Survey, but there is some pretty clear direction provided from the Geological Survey, and that's condition number 3, is we will achieve some form of compliance through that. Usually that's done by unique construction techniques, or that's done by some form of a remove and replace that amends the soil. It's a common problem in this area. The developers have had to do it all through Copperleaf and through Saddle Rock Highlands. So there are known techniques to handle it.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, that's the prairie, and I was surprised to find that the groundwater was so shallow and that was a problem out there. That is just the condition around that Copperleaf area, that there's that much groundwater, or what? Where's that coming from? I was just really surprised.
How and why? Without getting too deep into my geology background, it all depends on how the various layers of soil and strata are laid down. When this was all an inland sea, and over various periods it was laid down in a way that you'll get a layer in a particular area that holds water, as opposed to lets it percolate down into the deeper aquifers. This just happens to be one of those shallow basins.
Because we hear constantly about the aquifers and how those are getting sucked away, sucked dry, and so that this might just be some kind of shallow pooling in there because of whatever the soils are.
Basically.
Huh.
Somewhere in there's an impervious shallow soil layer that's not allowing the water to seep through.
Oh.
Unlike the 4 square mile area where water just vanishes into the sandy soils usually.
Except in people's backyards, but that's a different case. Okay, thank you.
That was really my question, too. I will admit I did not read all of it, but I skimmed through it, and I think that was my concern. So maybe if we could do we have someone from the applicant that could speak to some of the groundwater, the clay soils, and again, without going into tremendous detail, how do you protect future homeowners from shifting, and if this is something you've done in the area, just let us know, because I think that's the main thing from my perspective, and I hear from Commissioner Jackson too, is how are you protecting homeowners in the future from, I guess, spent night or...
Yeah, I'm Tim Bouchard with Meritage Homes. Our address is...
your address, yeah.
Yeah, 6892 South Yosemite Court Centennial, 80112. So yes, we come up with this issue quite a bit. Most of our sites, we have these claystone soils, which are expansive. So what we're doing on any site that has that, per our geotechnical recommendations, which you got a flavor of what those are when you read them, is we actually do a full sub-excavation. So what that is generally the report will say you need to go 10 feet below your lowest point of your foundation. So that means literally if the foundation's 8 feet in the ground, we have to go another 8 feet down and literally remove all of that soil. So the hole's potentially 18 feet deep, and make a stockpile, and then you're bringing that in shallow lifts of 6 to 8 inches, and you're disking it and adding water to it, and you're building that ground below your foundation back up. And what that is doing to the soil is giving it the moisture that keeps it expands basically when you're doing this work. So it's at full expansion. And when you get it built back up, the theory being you don't have these issues with expansive or heaving soils. And we've done it in many locations, and we're actively doing it today at several sites throughout the metro area. I was with a previous builder right across the street at Copperleaf. We did the same thing, and that's proven to be fairly successful. I think it's been going on in Colorado over the last, I don't even know, 15 to 20 years. And that's how we mitigate sites with this type of soil. It's a lot of extra work that you will see, and it kind of delays the land development as we start. That'll be the first thing we do is do this sub-X work and build the site back up, and then you'll start to see the pipe going and all that. So that is how we deal with that science of the soils.
Thank you, and apologize for the...
No problem.
Commissioner Baker.
Good morning.
Morning.
Are these homes going to be built slab on grade, or is there a floating?
Nope, they will be slab on grade, and that's due to us mitigating the soils. If we hadn't mitigated the soils, then we would have to do piers down to the bedrock, and then typically you would do a structural floor. But we tend to go the other route and do the soil work first and mitigate those issues.
One more question. This is about the access points. There's one going to South Malta Street and one via Odessa Way, which I believe would be constructed as part of this. If it may not, it may already be there, but that leads to Oxford Avenue. There's one, the Oxford Avenue one is kind of on the northeast, and the other one is going to the west, but at the south end. Were there traffic studies done?
Yes, we did that initially and met all the requirements of that and designed our site around those access points.
Good. Thank you. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak? If you would like to, come on down. And you have about 3 minutes for public comment, and the light will turn yellow here when you've got about 30 seconds left, and then the red light. And if you just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sharon Slaughter, and my address is 21056 East Princeton Place. So my street actually intersects where this, the intersection you asked about, where that's going to be at Malta. So, and I attended an informational meeting January that was really helpful. So we realize this is all very far along in the process, but every neighbor in the existing Tallgrass neighborhood that I've spoken with has been really concerned about that intersection that will be then at Princeton Place from the west, and Malta runs north-south, and then this new intersection for this new development will tee in, so there will be 4 access points. And Quincy is one house length south of that. So that intersection currently between Malta and Quincy is kind of a problem. It's a bottleneck. You are supposed to only turn left onto Quincy, and when we contemplate people coming out of the new development and then making left turns, I don't know if this makes any sense without the diagram, but making left turns from there and then having this little short distance down to Quincy to then make their theoretically not a left turn and a right turn. The traffic there is, I'm afraid it's going to be really a mess. So knowing that when I knew that was going to be developed, I had thought probably there would be access onto Quincy until this all happened, but it turned out, no, there's not. But that particular one, because of that short distance between Princeton Place which runs east-west, and Quincy, is really a concern. And so what I'm wondering is if there is any way that the people exiting or entering the new development, especially exiting from there, who are many of them going to want to make a left turn and then turn west onto Quincy, if there's any way to put the barriers in the paving there, sort of those triangular, whatever that's called, with the big curves, so that those people cannot actually make a left turn leaving that part of the neighborhood and turning south onto Malta, causing no end of, I'm just afraid it's going to be really a mess. And I don't know, I'm not sure that's been contemplated or addressed, but I think that's the only thing I could think of that would help really everybody, including the new people that will move in there, because it's going to be a
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll ask that question. Anyone else who would like to speak during public comment on this issue? Okay. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And we could ask that question about what is going to be in the traffic study. And, you know, I've seen right only, left only, things like that, and describing that. Or also, if you don't do something like that, don't block the intersection on the pavement so that people can get in and out. But I'd like to hear.
Okay. I am going to hand this over to the engineering section, who would have a better handle on the traffic in a moment. I wanted to provide a little bit of reassurance and a little bit of positive on this. One of the things staff found appealing about this proposal that we believe we would have neighborhood support on if it came up for discussion is the lot, the 16.28 acre lot right now has zoning in place for more than a couple hundred multifamily units. So we figured the reduction down to 96 single family homes would be a move in the positive direction for that. The access point onto Malta was set, I want to say in 2002 with the Saddle Rock Highlands PDP. Accessing onto Quincy probably isn't an option, but we can ask engineering about that briefly. But they've had this, I don't want to call it an entitlement, but this expectation. It's been planned for a long time. Having said that, I do empathize with the concerns of the existing homeowners there, but I have to balance the concerns of Princeton Street with concerns we had a number of years ago when someone proposed duplexes on this property. We heard from residents along Oxford that they were very concerned about traffic coming out of the northern exit. And then those were reinforced as the Tallgrass Commercial Center has been built. And certainly don't mean to discount or discredit any concern that we just heard. Yeah, it's a short stacking distance, admittedly. But we are trying to spread the load as opposed to unfairly burden one of the 2 points. That's probably all I can give you on the planning perspective. It's a handful of points, but I feel they all play to this design choice. Now, we do have experts in traffic. Well, we do have people. I don't know that we call them the experts. They're not traffic specialists, but we do have engineers that review the traffic report. So I'd like to go to them now.
Okay.
Morning, Commissioners. Spencer Smith with the Engineering Services Division. Generally, the applicant did do a traffic impact study for the site, and as Bill mentioned, the locations of the accesses to the site were set with kind of the overall development plan for the area. But they do analyze based on the residential type, number of units. They generate estimates on traffic generation for the site for peak hour, total per day, things like that, and they analyze each of the intersections. They assign a percentage to on-site traffic of which direction it's going to go, like to Oxford or to Malta. So they run that analysis, and part of that study, they analyze the intersections and the level of service. You're most familiar with that. We have level A, B, C, D, so forth. So they analyze that, and I do believe Malta and Princeton was anticipated to operate at level of service A, which is the best condition. And Quincy and Malta is expected to operate at a level of service B overall, and there are a couple movements there that would be a level of service C, and that's including all the site-generated traffic and existing traffic in the area. So their analysis by their traffic engineer showed that that signal, that intersection would continue to operate at what the county deems an acceptable level of service.
Commissioner Baker?
Good morning. Can you tell me if on Malta, as people travel southbound on Malta, will they be able to turn both right onto Quincy going west and left on Quincy going east? Is that correct?
At Quincy, that is a 3/4 movement intersection, I believe. So they are able to make the right turn onto Quincy if they're coming south on Malta, or they can go through. But I believe the left movement there at that intersection is...
So they wouldn't be allowed to turn left?
Correct.
And so there would not be a designated left-hand turn lane?
Right.
So if people are going straight across Quincy to connect with Malta on the other side, if that's going to happen, then they have to wait for both east and westbound traffic on Quincy to dissipate before they can safely go straight across. Do you anticipate I think we're talking about the stack of cars, would vehicles that are going directly across Quincy maybe hold up the folks that may want to turn right and be able to merge into traffic on westbound Quincy?
I may have to ask. I don't have all the supporting exhibits or the tables with the study printed out for me. If the engineer on the project may have that information specific to what those lengths are. Let's see just a second if they've got that information. Like I said, that's all included in that evaluation.
Related to that, it would be my question of whether that particular little intersection right there should have a don't block, because that would help if the stacking is going north, then it would allow people to come out more from both directions rather than people blocking that and nobody letting each other out. Anyway.
You're talking about like signage?
Yeah, just it's on the pavement.
It
says don't block intersection. Don't block the intersection or something like that.
Correct. And we did have our traffic staff at Public Works was referred to the plans, and they did comment. That was not one that they included, but certainly that would be...
I've seen it used more and more as traffic gets heavier and backed up more and more to allow people to get out of their neighborhoods at peak hours of the day.
Good morning, Board. Chuck Haskins. It is not intended that there'll be a movement across Quincy to Copperleaf. It is outbound only, outbound only. So there shouldn't be a significant queuing because it's kind of a free right, but it is rather close to the intersection. So I think Commissioner Sharp's comments are good. We'll need to monitor that to make sure that there's not queuing through the intersection, and if so, we can recommend some signage. We'll work with the applicant on that and recommend that there's no blocking of the intersection. But I don't really anticipate that based on the proposed levels of service, but we certainly can work with the applicant and monitor that.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. So we're talking about right turns here, which I certainly understand. But what if I want to go left? So I have to drive how far to make a U somewhere and come back? And what kind of congestion on already busy Quincy is that going to cause?
I think if you wanted to go east, then you need to go use Oxford. Go back to Oxford and Piccadilly, and then you'll get to the intersection of Piccadilly and Quincy, and there's a traffic signal there with a protected left-hand movement to be able to facilitate that.
How likely would it be to get a signal at Quincy and Malta?
Not likely at all. Yeah. We only put signals up. We want to try to move traffic on the main roads.
Could be well timed.
Yeah, but every time we do install a signal, then we take away green time for the main for traffic on Quincy.
Understand.
Which is a 6-lane facility, and there is a signal at Himalaya. There's a signal at Piccadilly. There's a signal at Copperleaf, and those are spaced such that we have good progression of traffic on Quincy. So it wouldn't be, and that's why it is a 3/4 movement.
So if you need to go in one direction, you use the Oxford entrance. If you need to go the other direction, you could use the Malta.
You could use the Oxford entrance, or you could take a right on Malta and it turns into Oxford.
So the residents are going to learn that one pretty quick, we hope.
I hope so. I mean, there'll be occasionally somebody turning right and then trying to do a U-turn somewhere. Those are kind of hard to eliminate completely.
Right.
But there's another option, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I guess I would just ask that this connection there on Malta, intersection there and at Quincy be monitored, and then if something additional needs to be done there as this development comes online, that should be considered, and whether it's some sort of signage or on the pavement, or I don't know if it would be as much as restricting movement, but I think would be important. Okay. I apologize, but we can talk afterwards. Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, I did. So, yeah. Commissioner Baker.
In the case of P16-028 Saddle Rock number 7 final plat, I have read the staff report and received testimony at the public hearing. I agree with the staff findings for the application, including all plans and attachments as set forth in the staff report dated May 11th, 2017. I hereby move to approve the request subject to the following conditions. 1. Prior to signature of the final copy of these plans, the applicant must address Public Works staff comments and concerns. 2. Approval of the concurrent P16-027 Saddle Rock Highlands number 7 FDP application is required before staff will forward the P16-028 Saddle Rock number 7 final plat plans to the BOCC for signature. 3. The applicant will comply with the Colorado Geological Survey direction pertaining to the site conditions. And 4. The applicant will provide an updated ECCV will serve letter.
For a second. Motion made by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And are there any commissioner comments this morning? Commissioner Jackson.
Madam Chair and Board, I attended the community meeting last week for the whole county managers, and at that time we were presented an award. As you know, this county is very invested in the wellness of our employees, and we have a number of programs. In fact, some of us did yoga this morning. A number of programs to help our employees achieve wellness. And so there was a contest with Douglas County on losing weight. And I am proud to say that we won the Weigh and Win Challenge for this year. I understand there's going to be a rematch. but Douglas County and Tri-County Health were there to present us with the award. And so I would like to present it to the board on behalf of the Weigh and Win Challenge. You're welcome.
Congratulations. Yeah. Commissioner Baker. I've been part of that. Commissioner Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May 21st through 27th is National Public Works Week, and we want to recognize the importance of our Public Works and Development staff for their contributions that positively impact the lives of Arapahoe County residents. In the year since the last National Public Works Week, our Public Works and Development accomplished a lot of great things, to include that they maintained 1,162 miles of paved roads, 451 miles of gravel roads, and they mapped 832 lane miles. They used 2,777 tons of asphalt to repair potholes. We all like that. And 34,000 tons of asphalt to pave county roads. They processed 603 zoning violations. They worked on 56 capital transportation projects and 12 traffic and safety projects. Engineering and planning handled 385 land development cases. They issued 3,417 building permits and performed 34,393 building inspections. Last but not least, they issued 1,698 dog licenses. So I just wanted to recognize those members of our Public Works Department that are here, that could be watching, and that work with us, 127 employees of our Public Works and Development Office. They do a great job every day of every year. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Commissioner Holen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week was National Infrastructure Week, and was celebrated in Washington, D.C. I had a chance to go back and participate in a panel with the president of the National League of Cities and the mayor of Oklahoma to talk about the importance of focusing on improving our infrastructure. Currently in the state of Colorado, we are nearly $900 million behind in our maintenance of our roads. $9 billion behind in the maintenance of our roads to get them up to speed. So and in safe conditions. The purpose of the week was to bring attention to our national leaders and the White House about how impactful a lack of attention to our infrastructure is having to impact upon our commerce and our road safety. I think that it's very important that we as a county, and I think Commissioner Baker's comment about public works is a clear indication of how seriously we take to improve our road safety. But the problem is, nationally and both locally, is that we don't have the necessary funds to meet those challenges, and that was the purpose of our lobbying in Washington last week. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other commissioner comments. I'll adjourn the meeting.